Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I am talking to a brother from another mother. I mean, look at this guy's haircut. We are actually both Danish Vikings, right? And this is such an honor to have Kim Lowert, founder and CEO of Appstract, joining me today. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you so much, Lance. Pleasure to be here.
So I joke about the brother from another mother, but I mean, we're sporting the same hairdo, and my ancestors originated from Denmark, as we were talking, and you're currently in Denmark tuning into this conversation. So it's just really exciting to talk to another person who has that heritage.
Thank you so much, and likewise.
Yeah. And so if you're Danish, if you're Viking blood, you have to shave your head. I think that is the rule, is it not?
I think it is. At least it's become the rule for the past 10, 15 years, I guess. So,
no doubt. Okay, so we're not here to talk about our amazing hairstyles. We're here to talk about entrepreneurship and your journey. But before we get into all of those details, I love to ask my guests, what are 3 things that every entrepreneur needs to know based off of, your experience growing and scaling the businesses that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I think the most important things that I've learned over the years is that being an entrepreneur and starting new businesses is hard work. You're going to learn so many skills. So I think it's important to be working hard. I think you need to be able to pivot your mindset. You're going to run into or stumble over roadblocks, and you need to be good at kind of handling that. And then the third thing I think is important is make sure you hire the right people. Really vet the people you get on your team, because the team is everything when you start a business.
And we're going to dig into that pivot mindset here a fair bit as we get into the conversation, because you've definitely had a pivot in what it is that you're doing now after 15 years of running a successful consultancy. But before we do that, can you tell me a little bit more about Appstract and what is it that you're trying to solve there in terms of the problems that people have in their online shopping experience?
Yeah, certainly. So what we've kind of seen over the years building e-commerce solutions as a consultancy is that we really haven't seen, I would say, for the past 15 to 20 years, when you look at the customer experience that people get in online shopping, it's very much the same as 15, 20 years ago. It's very static, I would say. It's very much akin to a catalog where you can browse the products on your own, and then you can look at them, you can add them to a basket, and you can check out. And optimizing that checkout flow and making it very easy for the customers to actually get the products that they want in the basket and check out quickly. That's what the focus has been for the past, I would say, at least 10 to 15 years. Yeah. So I think the challenge is that not with every category of products, but with a lot of categories of products, shopping is actually quite social. Humans are very social, but the social aspects of shopping is kind of offloaded to other platforms like Messenger or Slack or WhatsApp or whichever messaging platform or communication platform that people are using. So I think that's what we are trying to solve and say, hey, what would actually happen if we integrate the social aspects of shopping into the customer experience that you get in a store? So it becomes much more engaging. It becomes much more like the shopping experience you would have when you, at least the social aspects, when you shop with friends in physical stores. So that's what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and I think this is really profound because I never really thought about this before. Obviously, since the beginning of the pandemic, the amount of online shopping has just skyrocketed. And so I find myself still spending a tremendous amount of my shopping time online. And you're right, like we are social beings, and that is not something that happens in that online environment. And so, in my circumstance, my partner, we don't live together. So she and I, would be conversing over iMessage.
Mm.
Usually is the way that we're doing it. So I'll send her a screen grab or whatever of what I'm looking at to make sure, because I mean, I am stylistically challenged at the
Mm.
best of times when it comes to fashion. And so
Mm.
it's like, okay, so what do you think of these shoes? Or what do you think of this shirt or whatever, right? And so that happens all the time. Like you said, it's offloaded off of the website. And so this is a way for e-commerce stores to be able to actually keep it there and probably transact at a much higher rate and value, I would expect, than people who aren't using this software.
Exactly. And I think, or not I think, what we know from data from China, for example, where they do have some of these large shopping platforms where people can engage socially as part of the shopping. As you
Mm,
mentioned, uh, we see higher conversion rates, we see higher average basket size, we see better customer retention. So a number of factors, and that e-commerce stores or e-commerce companies tend to look at, that really they don't really get those kind of benefits because it happens on other media. and
yeah,
and that's, again, that's what we're trying to solve. And of course it doesn't work for all things that we shop, but for a lot of the products that we tend to shop for online, this could be something that could add an extra dimension to the shopping experience. And I
yeah,
think
yeah,
what actually a lot of people have a tendency to forget, or a lot of e-commerce stores or companies, what they tend to forget is that shopping is actually very much entertainment as well. And
mm,
uh, and this entertainment aspect is really forgotten in a lot of the shopping experiences that were provided today. And I
well,
would say where we are entertained is also where we end up buying. I know
yeah,
it's a small
yeah,
sample size, but for me at least, where I go in the physical world for, to stores where I'm entertained is also where I'm more likely to end up buying the products that I'm looking for.
yeah, yeah. And so for brands to really distinguish themselves and set themselves apart from the competition, this is a really interesting layer that they can add to their website. So we have clients of ours through our agency that have e-commerce stores, and so is the business model such that it's a monthly cost for the e-commerce store, or is it a percentage of the transactions? How are you guys working the business model side of it, things?
That's a really good question. So this is, again, is where we need to be able to pivot over time. So what we have been testing with customers currently is a monthly subscription fee and a monthly consumption fee on top of that. Meaning that the more our customers users use the social shopping or shared shopping product that we provide, the more it's going to be used, and then that is obviously incurring our cost. But we need to experiment over time and see, does it make more sense to actually give it away for free and then take a cut of whatever is bought through our product, or where it's a group buying. We need to be able to test that and see what makes sense, and test it with the market as well. So
Yeah.
we have a number of experiments lined up with regards to pricing, but so far we've been testing the subscription fee and consumption fee, and that is where we're going to start.
So, Kim, I think I can understand and appreciate what you're talking about in terms of, having that consultancy and you're not able to really do the things that you want, almost like you're kind of held back a bit by the customer and what the customer's roadmap or needs are. I can relate to that in the sense that when I first started Ample Media, my creative director was actually a really great friend of mine. Still is a great friend. And after a year of working in the business, doing the creative directing and the art himself, for at that time, Ample Media was an animation studio only.
Mm,
He started to get frustrated with, again, those restrictions that the clients had, and he just wanted to do his own art. And
mm,
that's kind of what it sounds like you want to do. You want to do your own art in the form of creating your own product and really seeing if you can
mm.
find that product market fit.
Exactly. I think that
Yeah.
makes very good sense. Yeah,
So
certainly.
now, in terms of the business models themselves, I mean, very, very different business model, the consultancy versus a product base. Walk me through what you think are the advantages there of a product base over a consultancy.
Yeah. So I think as a consultancy business, in a sense, you're that's at least what I've been hearing through all the years that I've been working as a consultant. You're always like you're a couple of 3 to 6 months away from going bankrupt. I know it's
Yeah.
kind of caricatured, but you always need to hunt a new project, to continue your business, and of course you need to do that as well when you build a product business. But I think the bigger difference is that in a sense you're not, or we're not going to be as I would say as exposed when you lose good consultants in your company, for example, or good employees, because you are going to have people coming in as a business. You're going to have people coming in and leaving over time, no matter how good you are. Your best people are going to leave at some point. And that's a huge weakness, I would say, as a consultancy business, because at some point in time, your consultants are going to have a personal link to your customers.
Mm.
And you are, as a business, relying on the skills of your consultants. Whereas a product business, you're more relying on the product that you build. And of course, you're still relying on a good team, as I mentioned before, but you're not going to be as exposed, at least with our customers, when someone on the team leaves for various reasons. So I think
Yeah.
that's one aspect which is very different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction for sure, because that is a massive risk, like not just consultancies, but even like what we do with our agency, the same idea. When we have key people on the account side leave, that relationship is potentially broken with the customer. And so it is a risk that, yeah, it's
exactly.
a lot less prevalent there in your business for sure.
Yeah,
Another thing that I was wondering about too, the appeal of the product is the scalability of it is just
certainly.
almost infinite. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
there's only so many e-commerce platforms out there or businesses that are going to, to buy the service, to buy the plugin, but it's infinite comparatively speaking than the consultancy is. So
yeah.
is that a huge motivator too, where you just look at it from a business model perspective, where it's like I build it once, and I mean that's simplifying it. You're obviously always
Mm.
developing it, but you build it and then you just sell it continuously, and the sales cost is not incrementally a whole lot more there from one to the next.
I think that's a really good point, and that is one of the points, is that scalability is just completely different
Yeah,
from a product business, especially from a SaaS business model. It's just completely different. Much easier to scale, as we all know.
yeah,
And as you mentioned, cost of the next customer is close to zero. So yeah, completely different. And of course that motivates as well. Not being able to have a much larger reach, global reach, essentially from more
yeah,
or less day one. And
yeah.
we just don't have that as a consultancy business.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And I would think that, also in terms of attracting investment to it or your exit strategy at some point, what you're building is this recurring revenue stream, which then the multiple that you can get off of that on your exit is going to be much more appealing than the multiple an agency, a consultancy, or anything else can do without that locked in recurring revenue stream.
Certainly, certainly, and that's obviously a huge motivator as well. Much easier to attract investment. Not saying that attracting investment is easy; it's
Yeah.
hard work, but it is, of course, more a lot easier to find good investors that have done this before. Have knowledge about how to build a business, a SaaS business that needs to have global reach and so on and so forth. Yeah, and as you mentioned, much more interesting for investors as well.
So I'm curious because this is a totally different business model, the SaaS model compared to what you were doing. What do you find has been transferable skills from running a consultancy for 15 years and understanding, the development world? What have you been able to transfer into this business that would make this business easier for you to start than, say, a guy like me?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I think if you look at the product that we're going to market with right now, the shared shopping product, um, that is something that you can say developers. Of course, it's possible for other developers to build something similar. What we're actually building is a development platform which sits underneath the shared shopping product. We have a number of other services in the pipeline. So that's part of our go-to-market model for our development platform is to essentially have these different products on top of the platform to showcase the value of when you build your software for also or to also kind of take into consideration the social aspects of using that particular product. Then there's a lot of value in that. And your question was, so how can I bring the knowledge that I have from 15 years running a consultancy business into the new business? So what we're doing with the development platform is that we're obviously we need to make it easy to extend on the core functionalities that we provide in the shared shopping product. So developers or agencies can easily extend on the functionality or the basic functionality that we provide to make it much more integrated into the online store that they are running
Mm,
from a UX perspective. So that's one thing. We have knowledge from my previous consultancy business on how consultancies in general work and development teams, how they work. Uh, I would say today, development teams are much more diverse than they were 10, 15 years ago when I started consulting. It was very kind of technical, but the level of the platforms and the products we use are just have just been lifted. So you bring more people into a development team, UX developers, designers. You have, of course, the front end and back end developers, but you also have DevOps people and business analysts or data BI kind of personalities. And these different roles, at least that was how it was in my consulting business. They're very different people, and it's actually the people side of things that is a challenge in a development team, in my experience, is that it's different people with different personalities. And so you can say a backend developer it's very easy for a backend developer talking to another backend developer. But actually, even backend developers and front end developers have difficulties agreeing on the interfaces, and that challenge just kind of, I wouldn't say explode, but increases when you have UX designers who need to hand over what they have designed to a development team that then needs to interpret. And then your business intelligence people that need to set up tracking, they need to understand how can we track this. So they need to talk to both the UX people and the developers to get that stuff. So I hope it makes sense that you can kind of see that you have different people needing to interpret what other people on the team have been doing. And that is actually one of the challenges that the development platform that we're building underneath is also trying to, I wouldn't say solve, but make it easier for these different roles to actually communicate with each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so having that wealth of experience and understanding is just going to really play well in this business. Now, there's going to be some challenges, though, I would imagine that you're going to have to overcome that are a little bit different than what you were needing to overcome in the consultancy. So, talk to me a little bit about what you anticipate will be your biggest challenges that you're going to face over the next year or two to really, achieve the growth or the company scale that you want it to have in that same period of time. So, what are your biggest challenges that you see right in front of you?
Really good question as well. I would say the initial challenge that we see is that we're bringing something to the market that I would say the e-commerce stores haven't seen before, and also their customers really haven't seen before. So I would argue that being social or having social engagements when you shop, for example, clothing, as you mentioned in the beginning, or travels, with friends, or other products or services, the social aspects is something that we do already, but having it as part of this shopping experience and not offloading it to our go-to chat client or whatever is going to be a little bit challenging initially, because how do we tell the customers, hey, if you click on this button, you can very easily start shopping with your friends? So that's an initial challenge that we have. Once we get past that with our beta customers, and we know how we get insights on, okay, how is it we promote this kind of service? What are best practices from a business perspective when you introduce a completely new feature like this? Then it's going to be a lot easier for us to sell in with customers once we have really good data where we can say, okay, when you start doing this and communicate this way about shared shopping with your customers, then they're much more likely to use it, and then you're going to see these kinds of returns. We anticipate that once we have that data, it's going to be a lot easier to sell, obviously. But that's the initial challenge.
Yeah.
The longer term challenge, I would say, is obviously scaling a team, finding the right people. Having been in business for 15 years, I've had really good colleagues in my consultancy business, and I've had, I would say, not bad colleagues, but people who were good consultants, but not necessarily the best developers. And it's a different skill set. I'm not, building a product team. Of course, I still need good people, but I don't need good consultants. I need people who are very skilled developers. But of course, I also need people who have the social aspect. So I have a list of previous colleagues that I'm obviously in dialogue with and trying to lure into this new business and say, hey, and lure sounds so negative, but actually say, hey, you need to be on board with this. We need you. And I think it would be interesting for you to join this journey that we're on. So that's the second thing, attracting talent, I would say, and building a really good team. And third is scale.
I was just going to say the human resources. I mean, that's just always a challenge, no matter what anybody says in any industry. Man, if you don't have the human resources figured out, you're never going to find the success. You're never going to be able to get that growth that you're looking for. So okay, continue on number 3.
And I think number 3 is scale, right? So initially, I have a list, obviously, of people, but it's a finite list, and hopefully soon that list is not going to be enough. And so scale is the third challenge, I would say. Scale from a team perspective, getting new people on board fast enough, who have the right, I would say, personality, the right attention to detail, and also the right chemistry with the team that we're building. And
Yeah.
because what we're trying to build is a team which is over time at least going to be global, how do we build a team that is distributed? I do not have a lot of experience with that, so that's certainly something that we need to figure out a good way of doing. And obviously that can either be via someone we hire who has this experience, or we need to get this experience. But I'm sure it's a challenge, but it's a solvable challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Other people have done it, right? And so it's not one of those things that is novel. It's just a matter of you don't have that expertise yet, so it will
Exactly.
come. I'm curious about the big difference again between the consultancy and the product is just the way that you would market your business. You obviously have to the opportunity to have many, many, many more customers, but also that is the challenge, is trying to attract and pitch your product, get your product in front of them
Hmm.
in that lowest cost for customer acquired as possible. So what is the thinking there? Do you have that already internally? Is that something that you're building out as a future step? How are you tackling the marketing, because it's so much different than what it was in your
Yeah.
other business?
Yeah. Marketing is always, I think, again, going back to what kind of team are we building? I would say, at least initially, things will change over time, but initially we will be building a core development team and a core sales team, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, but marketing is a resource where we would probably be looking at buying that as an external service, as well as just as we will be doing with legal, with accounting and other things that are not core to the business. So I think that's something that you also need to be aware of as a startup, or that which are the core features of your team that you need to have in-house, and which are you going to buy externally from consultants, because you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to have everyone internally to begin with. So marketing would be something that I would imagine that we would be engaging with outside advice and someone to run that over time. I would imagine that it's that if we can find, and of course we will be able to find, but a really good CMO who
Yeah.
can drive that, and then they will probably be engaging with external consultants to help with the actual work. But that would probably be the path that we're looking at and we'll
Yeah.
be investigating. But it
Yeah.
wouldn't be internal, at least for the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and I might know a company actually.
Yeah.
Just all joking aside, yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting because of your consultancy background. I think you're going to be able to navigate through that a lot better than the average company in terms of, okay, so how do I assess which ones we need to be internally, leveraging the expertise and building it in house, and then
Mm.
leveraging external consultants and agencies and so on, because you have that understanding as to because we're always, as the consultants, we're always selling that as to there's a value in not having it necessarily inside the organization, right? And so
Mm.
that you'll be able to figure out that cost benefit analysis a lot better than the average business, I suspect. Yeah, this has been really great, Kim. I could talk to you for another half hour without a problem at all, and even longer than that. But unfortunately, we ran out of time today. If somebody wanted to connect with you, though, to follow up and to learn more about the business Appstract, or just to connect with you on a personal level, what is the
Yeah.
best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, I think people, I'm very open to meet up with people. I think as a founder of a startup, I love sharing
Yeah,
my experiences, and I think it's important to pay it forward. So people are very welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn or write me an email. I try to be very, if people are writing personal emails, I always take my time to respond properly. If I can see that it's a robot contacting me, you're not going to get a response. But personal emails or outreach on LinkedIn is very, very welcome. I would love to share and assist in any way I can within the means of time that I have available.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a matter of time before the robots are talking to each other and we're just sitting back having a beer on the beach, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, so thank you very much. I really appreciate taking the time today. And for those of you who are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, there's a whole pile of other ones over in our archives at amplifyyourbusiness.ca. And obviously, if you're watching this and want to just listen to it in audio only, we're available on all the major podcasting platforms. Just search Amplify Your Business there. Until next time, everybody have a prosperous day. And thank you once again, Kim. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for your time, Lance.